Hey, good morning to everybody. Today we're working on this 2016 Nissan X-Trail hybrid, of course. And in this episode we are going to do a full service to the high voltage system, which is located right here on the trunk of the vehicle. So if you want to check out how this is work, all its components, stay tuned and we will continue then. Alright guys, so after removing the rear covers in the trunk, we find that we have over here the 12-volt battery next to the high voltage battery. But before we're putting our hands on this, please remember that before you do this type of work, we need to follow the safety protocols, right? That means that we have to disconnect the 12-volt battery, check all the tools, use the proper insulated gloves, remove, of course, the safety plugs, wait for a few minutes until the system is completely discharged, then measure that and be sure that we don't have any high voltage, because we have to take out all the battery. All right, so basically what we're gonna do over here, it's remove the high voltage battery. We're gonna clean all the system, and also after uncovering this cover, we have the high voltage battery cooling fan that also needs to be serviced every certain often. All right, so we'll continue then. Alright, so we have successfully removed the safety plug and the 12-volt battery. So I have it right here in my hands. I have to store it in a very safe place where nobody puts its hand on it. Alright, because remember, this is not safe. Okay, so this is the safety plug, right? And well, we will continue then. Okay guys, so one of the most important things that we're going to service on this high voltage system is, of course, the cooling system. All right, so then we know that this is the suction vent, which goes directly into the cooling fan, and then the cooling fan blows right away directly into the top of the cells, and of course in the DC to DC converter, which is located right next to the battery. All right, so we were just going to take all these covers out and we'll continue them. Okay, after we remove all the ventilation covers, we see over here the air passage directly into the cells. We got the inner passage directly into the DC to DC converter, and behind this cover, so we have the high voltage battery cooling fan, which is located over here. We're going to take it apart, we're going to take it out, and basically the main reason why we're doing this type of service is because the customer, he didn't know, so it's not really his fault. It has been using for a long time the shiny silicone sticky products to make the vehicle shine, and well, those products are oily, and of course, as oily products, they come directly into the ventilation system and get stuck into the fan, and of course that brings trouble because the fan gets sticky, and if it gets sticky, it absorbs all the debris and dirt and start to get clogging time and losing a lot of efficiency when it comes to cooling. So we're just gonna take it apart, completely clean it, check all the components, and we'll continue then. Alright, as you can see, this is the cooling fan. It's not so dirty, but it's pretty sticky. Well, you guys won't be able to appreciate that from the video, of course, but believe me when I tell you, it is sticky. And the blades, yeah, can you see the blades looking a little darker? Yeah, it's a lot of debris stuck in the blades. So we're gonna take it apart and fully clean it. So as you can appreciate, in order to take out the high voltage battery, of course, we have to disconnect all the system. So here we see next to the high voltage battery is the DC to DC converter, which we have to disconnect. Of course, we have the main power cables coming from the junction block, and then we should be able to take out the battery with no problems. Okay, so we'll continue then. Alright guys, so we just finally finished the cleanup. This fan was not too dirty, but it was sticky, very sticky. So all the debris and dirt gets stuck in the blades. Of course, the performance of the fan, it's been reduced in about 30 to 40%. It's a lot. Alright, so everything is good. We're just going to assemble back and coming to the battery now. We can say that this battery is already fully service it, blow, and we will start to assemble back then. Alright, so we just finished the service and clean this full lithium-ion battery pack, and as we can see, this is 887 watt-hours lithium-ion battery. It wasn't so bad at all, just a tiny little sticky inside, but what we're gonna do is just assemble back and well, hope everything works as good as it should. So we'll continue then. Okay, so the battery pack is right back where it belongs. Before we assemble it, we had a deep cleaning of all this compartment. Okay, so we're not going to start assembling back all its components. Everything done. Where there goes the fan, everything's as good as new. So we will continue then. Let's start assembling back. So I wonder if some of you guys could be curious about the DC to DC converter in this unit. Some of the vehicles like Toyota, for example, the converter comes inside the inverter assembly. But let's say as for example Honda and Nissan, the DC to DC converter is an additional external component, mostly times located on the back of the vehicle. In case of Honda, for example, it's inside the battery, and this one is just located on top of the battery. So if we talk about the DC to DC converter, this is actually, let's take it as the replacement of the alternator. That means that this vehicle doesn't use alternator. It just receives high voltage from the battery and then steps down the high voltage DC and delivers low voltage DC to run the accessories. Basically, that's what this little unit does. So this is what we call the DC to DC converter. Of course, it gets a little heat, so it needs ventilation. So if you were wondering what was this for, then now you know. Anyway, we will still might be doing a video about the deep dive in the inverter assembly with, and also more converters, so you will be able to see by yourself more units. In the meantime, let's start assembling back this unit, and so we'll continue then. So assembling back the cooling fan. It only goes in one position, so it shouldn't be a problem. And there you go. That's it. That's where it should go. We'll continue. And that is exactly how the high voltage battery cooling fan is assembled back. So this suction duct over here is the ones to, there you go, connects with this external unit. So we'll continue then. Well, this is quite an important part. The warning says never remove this hose. Reason for? Well, all ventilation inside the battery goes within this hose, so we will definitely won't forget to put this back. So we'll continue then. Okay, so we can say that everything is assembled back. Service plug, everything is connected. Let's just give a quick tour about all the components over here located, especially here in the back. So we know that we have over here inside this unit 0.89 kilowatt hours lithium ion high voltage battery. Okay, we have over here, as you can see, this is the main connector for the DC to DC converter, and of course, as you can see, this tiny little two cables is the interlock. Okay, so remember, all hybrid system has an interlock. This main component over here, this one is the main connector, the DC 2 huge cable that goes directly into the inverter in the front of the vehicle. Okay, so as I was explaining before, the DC to DC converter is the one who substitutes the alternator. So the DC to DC receives high voltage DC from the high voltage battery and then steps down that voltage into low voltage and delivers 14 volts directly to the positive, to the battery. That's how the accessory system work in hybrid and electric vehicle. So any vehicles that you see that doesn't use an alternator needs to have a DC to DC converter. Could be like this, could be bigger, could be small, different size, different shape, different color, but basically they do just the same, just step down the voltage. Okay, so we're also changing the 12-volt battery, and well, it will take us about maybe 5 more minutes just to finish to assemble all this and start the vehicle. So we will continue then. Well, that's basically the trunk of the vehicle, how it looks once it's all fully assembled. Well, let's take a look now to the front of the vehicle. Right, so the vehicle driving properly, everything just fine. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Remember about the sticky product? Well, that's what happened to your cluster when you use that every often. Yeah, that damaged the cluster. Right, so here we have the GDI engine, not one of my favorites actually, and this is the inverter assembly of the Nissan. So we have the cable coming from the battery and the 3-phase cable that delivers power directly into the just one electric motor. The extra high voltage cable is the one that fits the AC compressor right down there. So that's basically all, guys. Stay tuned because there's a great new video coming about the inverter assembly from 2 different type of vehicles. So I'll see you guys next episode and have a great time. Bye bye, guys.